My name's Rita, and if you told me my life would turn into a whirlwind drama, I have laughed. I'm 35, a journalist, and not the kind who sits around. I'm always on the go, chasing stories, making headlines. I've got a daughter, Emily. She's the light of my life, 8 years old and already the boss of our small apartment in the city. Life was ticking along until 2 years ago. I was covering a story on the city's new recycling initiative. Sounds boring, right? But then I met David. He was the mayor's right-hand man, and let me tell you, he had this air about him. Smart, quick on his feet, and knew how to hold a conversation. 12 years my senior, but who's counting? We hit it off right away. It started with casual chats after the interview sessions. "You're doing great work," he'd say. "This city needs more journalists like you." Flattery maybe, but it worked. David and we didn't waste time. Got married a year after meeting. He's got a daughter too, Sarah. She's 20, off at college in another city. Can't say we're close. She's got this cold vibe, especially towards Emily. I remember the first time they met. "Hi, Sarah, this is Emily," I said, trying to sound upbeat. Sarah had looked at her, not mean but not warm either. "Hi," she muttered, then turned away, lost in her phone. Emily tugged at my shirt. "Mom, does she not like me?" I brushed her hair back. "Don't worry about it, honey. She's just different." David was a lifesaver, though. My job, it's crazy hours, you know. He started picking up Emily from school, making her lunch. He was good at it, and Emily seemed to like him. "David's funny, Mom," she'd say. "He makes the best sandwiches." Our apartment, it's cozy. 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, and a living room that's seen better days, but it's home. Emily's room is a burst of pink and posters of pop stars I can't name. David moved in some of his stuff too, mostly books and a few old records. He's into jazz, which is fine, but not my cup of tea. "Rita, you should try listening to this," he'd say, putting on some old record. "It's classic." I'd smile, nodding along. "Sure, I'll give it a shot. But between you and me, I never did." We settled into this routine, the 3 of us. It was nice, normal, or so I thought. But like they say, normal's just what you're used to until it's not. Things started to shift, but it wasn't like I woke up one day and everything was different. It was slow, like a faucet dripping until the sink's full. Emily, she's always been this bundle of energy, you know. Always running around, laughing, her eyes sparkling with all kinds of mischief. But then it was like someone turned down her brightness. She became quieter, more like she was walking on eggshells. One night, I was tucking her into bed, and she was just lying there, staring at the ceiling. I brushed her hair, trying to make her laugh. "Hey, Space Cadet, you planning a trip to the moon?" She didn't even crack a smile, just whispered, "No, Mom." That was my cue. "What's up? You're not your usual self." She turned her head, not meeting my eyes. "I'm okay." I sat down next to her. "You sure? You've been kind of quiet lately." She shrugged. "Just tired, I guess." "Tired at 8? I wasn't buying it, but I let it slide. Didn't want to push her. "Okay, kiddo, if you say so, but you know you can tell me anything, right?" She nodded, but there was something off. I kissed her forehead and turned off the light. "Good night, love." As I closed the door, I heard her whisper, "Night, Mom." I went to the kitchen where David was. He was doing his usual, flipping through some papers, probably work stuff. "Hey," I said, "you notice anything off with Emily lately?" He didn't look up. "Off like what?" "Like she's not herself, more quiet, kind of down." He shrugged, still not looking at me. "Kids have moods, Rita. She's probably fine." "Yeah, maybe." I wasn't convinced, but what else could I say? The next few days, it was the same. Emily was like a little shadow, just there but not really. It got me thinking, maybe something at school. I decided to ask her about it. I waited for a good time, right after dinner when we were clearing up. "Hey, Em, everything okay at school?" She was stacking plates, not looking at me. "Yeah, it's okay." "You sure? No one's bothering you or anything?" She paused, then shook her head. "No, everyone's nice." I wanted to believe her, but moms know, right? There's this gut feeling when something's not right. I let it go for the moment, didn't want to push her. That weekend, we were doing laundry. Emily was helping me fold clothes. That's when I saw it, a bruise on her arm. Not a small one either. I tried to keep my voice steady. Em, what's that on your arm? She pulled her sleeve down quick. Oh, I fell at the playground. You fell? That looks bad, honey. She avoided my eyes. It's nothing really. I wanted to dig deeper, but her face, it was like she was scared. Scared of what? I couldn't figure it out. Okay, if you say so. But be careful. Okay, yeah, Ma. I watched her for a moment. She went back to folding like nothing happened, but I couldn't shake the feeling. Something was up, and I needed to find out what it was. Eating at me like a splinter. You can't get out. Something was off with Emily, and I couldn't just let it go. That bruise, her quietness, it wasn't like her. I had to figure it out, but I didn't know where to start. Then this idea hit me. Why not use one of those smart watches? The ones that can record stuff. I mean, if something's happening at school, maybe I could catch it. I got the watch, a sleek little thing. Told Emily it was an early birthday present. Look at this, Em, you can call me with it if you ever need to. I said, trying to sound upbeat. She looked at it a bit puzzled but then smiled. Thanks, Mom. It's cool. I showed her how to use it, but I didn't tell her about the recording part. Felt kind of sneaky, but I had to know. The next few days, I was anxious, waiting for something, anything. Finally, when she was in bed, I took the watch to check the recordings. My heart was racing as I started listening. At first, it was just kid stuff. Her talking to friends, teachers in the background, normal school noises. But then I heard something that made my blood run cold. It was David's voice, but not the David I knew. He was angry, really angry. You think you can just mess around, huh? You're such a fool, Emily. I couldn't believe it. This wasn't the David who made sandwiches and joked around. My hands were shaking as I listened. There was a sound like a slap, and then Emily crying. Please stop. I won't do it again. I felt sick. My David hitting my little girl. I had to stop the recording. My mind was racing. This couldn't be happening, but it was right there in the recording. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there, thinking, trying to make sense of it. In the morning, I saw Emily off to school, acting like everything was normal. But as soon as she left, I called in sick to work. I had to figure this out. David came home that evening, all smiles like usual. Hey, how was your day? He asked, hanging up his coat. I was boiling inside, but I kept my cool. Oh, the usual. Emily's got a school project coming up. She's pretty excited. He just nodded. That's good. Kids need stuff to keep them busy. I wanted to scream at him, asking why he did it, but I couldn't. Not yet. I needed to be sure, needed more proof. The next few days, I kept a close eye on Emily, on David. Everything seemed normal, but I knew it wasn't. I kept checking the watch, but there was nothing like before. Just once was enough, though. Once was too much. I was in a daze, thinking about that recording. It kept replaying in my head over and over. David's voice, Emily's cries. I needed to do something. But what? I couldn't just confront David, not without a plan. And Emily? I needed to talk to her, get her side. That evening, I sat Emily down. We were in her room, surrounded by her toys and drawings. Em, honey, we need to talk about something important. I started, trying to sound calm. She looked up, her eyes wide. Is everything okay, Mom? I took a deep breath. It's about David. Has he ever hurt you? Her eyes darted away. She fidgeted with the hem of her shirt. What do you mean, Emily? I need you to be honest with me. Has David ever hit you? There was a long pause. Then she nodded slowly, her eyes filling with tears. Yes, she whispered. Why didn't you tell me, baby? He said not to. He said you'd be mad at me. She was crying now. I pulled her into my arms. Oh, Em, I'm so sorry. This is not your fault, okay? You did nothing wrong. We sat there for a while, just holding each other. My mind was racing. I had to protect her, get her away from David. The next day, I made a plan. I collect more evidence, something solid. Then I go to the police. But first, I needed to keep Emily safe. I called my mom. Mom, I need a favor. Can Emily stay with you for a few days? I've got a big project at work. Of course, dear. Is everything all right? Yeah, just busy. Thanks, Mom. That was one problem solved. But now the hard part, gathering evidence against David. I didn't know how to do it, but I had to try. I started by talking to Sarah, David's daughter. Maybe she knew something, could help somehow. I called her, my heart pounding. Sarah, it's Rita. We need to talk. It's about your dad. There was silence on the line. Then what about him? I think he's been hurting Emily. I have a recording, but I need more. Did he ever hurt you? Did he ever hurt you? Another long silence, then a quiet yes. It was like a floodgate opened. Sarah told me everything, how David had been abusive to her, how she was scared of him. I couldn't believe I hadn't seen it before. Getting more evidence against David wasn't going to be a walk in the park, I knew that. The guy was slick, always had his guard up. But what he didn't know was that I was onto him, and I was not about to let him get away with hurting my daughter. First things first, I needed to keep it cool around him, act like nothing was up. Morning, David, I said over breakfast, keeping my voice light. He grunted something back, buried in his newspaper. You got plans today? He asked, not even looking up. Just the usual work stuff, I replied, stirring my coffee. You meeting with the mayor? You know how it is. Oh, I knew how it was all right, meetings and schmooing, that was David's game. But my game had just begun. I dropped Emily off at my mom's place. You'll be fine here, sweetheart, I told her, trying to sound cheerful. Grandma's got that new puzzle for you. Emily smiled a bit. I like puzzles, she said, hugging me tight. Me too, baby, me too, I whispered, kissing her forehead. Once I was sure Emily was safe, it was time to get to work. I called Sarah. We need to meet. It's time we put a plan together. She agreed to meet at a cafe downtown. It was quiet, the kind of place where you could talk without being overheard. Sarah looked tense when I got there. So, what's the plan? She asked, her voice low. We need to record him, get him on tape admitting what he's done to you, to Emily. It's the only way. Sarah nodded, biting her lip. I can try talking to him, maybe get him to say something. It was risky, but it was all we had. Be careful, Sarah. He can't know we're onto him. I know. I'll be careful. We spent the next hour going over every detail. What to say, how to say it, when to push, when to back off. It was like setting a trap, and we had to be perfect. The next few days were a blur. I kept my distance from David, made excuses to stay late at work, anything to avoid being alone with him. Sarah did her part. She called David, made up some story about needing to talk. Dad, I've been thinking about when I was a kid, she said on the phone. I could hear her voice, tense but steady. There are things we never really talked about. David took the bait. We can talk, sure. Come over for dinner. That was it. Sarah was going in, wired to record everything. My heart was in my throat the whole evening, waiting for her call. It came late that night. I got it, Rita. I got him to talk. I felt a mix of relief and dread. Good work, Sarah. Bring it over. We need to listen to it, make sure we have what we need. She came over, looking like she'd just gone 10 rounds in the ring. We sat at my kitchen table, listening to the recording. David's voice filled the room at first, then getting angrier. You always were a difficult child, Sarah. Always asking for it. My blood boiled listening to him, but then he said it, clear as day. I did what I had to do to you, to Emily. You both needed to learn. That was it, the confession. I felt sick to my stomach, but at the same time, I felt a surge of triumph. We had him. We take this to the police first thing tomorrow, I said, my voice firm. Sarah nodded, looking exhausted but determined. Yeah, it's time he paid for what he's done. It was a long night. Neither of us slept much, but we had what we needed. David was going down, and I was going to make sure of it. The morning sun was barely up, but I was already wide awake, my mind racing. Today was the day I'd confront David. The evidence was there on my kitchen table, a little recorder that held his confession. My hands were shaking as I thought about what I had to do. I couldn't back down now. I heard David getting ready, the usual clatter in the bathroom, the sound of his shoes on the hardwood floor. I braced myself as he came into the kitchen. "Morning, Rita," he said, grabbing his coffee. He sounded so normal, like it was just another day. I took a deep breath. "We need to talk, David," I said. He raised an eyebrow, a slight smirk on his face. "About what?" he asked. "About what you've done to Emily," I replied. His face changed then, the smirk disappearing. "What are you talking about?" he asked. I felt a surge of anger. "I know everything, David. It's over. I know you hurt Emily. I know you hurt your own daughter." He laughed, a cold, harsh sound. "You think that will hold up? You think anyone will believe you over me?" I stood up, my hands clenched into fists. "They will when they hear this." I hit play on the recorder, and his voice filled the room, admitting what he'd done. David's face went pale. He reached for the recorder, but I snatched it away. "No, you don't get to hide from this. Not anymore," I said. He stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "You're going to ruin everything, my career, my life," he pleaded. "You did that yourself when you hurt those girls." "It's over, David," I said, feeling desperate but resolute. "You can't prove anything. It's your word against mine," he argued. I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "No, it's your word against yours. You confessed, David. It's all here." He was silent, just staring at me, his face a mask of defeat. "I'm going to the police," I said, my voice steady. "And I'm taking this with me. You're going to pay for what you've done." He didn't say anything as I walked past him out of the kitchen. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I had everything I needed. Walking into the police station, my heart was hammering in my chest like a drum. I never thought I'd be in a situation like this, but here I was, about to turn in the man I once thought I loved. I recounted to the officer at the desk. "Can I help you, ma'am?" he asked. I took a deep breath. "Yes, I need to report a case of domestic abuse." "I have evidence," I said, my voice shaking, but holding the recorder tightly in my hand like a lifeline. He looked at me, his expression turning serious. "All right, let's go to an interview room and you can tell me everything." The next hours were a blur of questions and statements. I played them the recording, watched their faces change as David's voice filled the room. It felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart. When I finally left the police station, I felt empty and exhausted, but there was a sense of relief too. The truth was out, and there was no turning back. I called Sarah. "It's done." I gave them the recording, I said. There was a pause, then Sarah's voice, firm but emotional. "Thank you, Rita, for everything. We're in this together," she said. I tried to sound more confident than I felt. "Yes, we are." The next few weeks were a whirlwind. David was arrested, and the story hit the news. Headlines screamed about the mayor's assistant and the shocking allegation against him. My world was upside down, but I knew I'd done the right thing. The legal battle was tough. David had a good lawyer, the kind that knows how to twist words and play on technicalities. But we had the truth on our side. Sarah testified, her voice breaking as she told the court about her father's abuse. I could see the jury's faces, the horror and sympathy as they listened to her story. Then it was my turn. "Miss Stevens, can you tell the court about the recording you made?" the prosecutor asked. I nodded, taking a deep breath. "I recorded Mr. Johnson admitting to abusing my daughter and his own daughter. I wanted to protect my child and expose the truth." David's lawyer tried to shake me, questioning my motives, suggesting I was out for revenge. But I stood my ground. "This isn't about revenge, it's about protecting my daughter and getting justice for what he did," I asserted. The trial seemed to drag on forever, but finally, the day of the verdict came. I sat in the courtroom, my hands clenched in my lap, waiting for the jury to return. "We find the defendant, David Johnson, guilty of child abuse," the foreman said. It was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. David was sentenced to prison and colossal monetary compensation. The judge's words were harsh. condemning his actions and the pain he caused. As he was led away, I felt a mix of emotions: relief, sadness, anger, but above all, I felt a sense of closure. The aftermath was hard. I had to rebuild my life, help Emily heal from the trauma she'd experienced. But we were free from David's shadow, and that was what mattered. I focused on my work, on being there for Emily. We started therapy, both of us, to work through everything that had happened. It wasn't easy, but we were getting there day by day. We moved into a new house. It was smaller than the old one, but it was ours, and it was a fresh start. The first day we moved in, Emily ran around the house, exploring every nook and cranny. "I get to pick my room?" she asked, her eyes wide with excitement. "Of course, kiddo, whichever one you want," I replied, watching her dash from room to room. She picked the one with the big window that looked out over the backyard. "I can see the stars from here, Mom," she said, smiling. "Then it's perfect for you," I said, smiling back. Unpacking was a chore, but it felt good, like we were putting our lives back together piece by piece. We decided to paint the living room together. I gave Emily a paintbrush. "What do you think, blue or green?" I asked. She dipped the brush in the blue paint. "Blue like the sky on a sunny day," she said. "So blue it is," I replied, and we got to work, turning the room into our own little piece of the sky. One afternoon, while we were taking a break from painting, there was a knock on the door. It was Sarah. She stood there a bit awkward, shifting from foot to foot. "Hey, Rita, can I come in?" she asked. I was surprised but happy to see her. "Of course, come in." We sat in a half-painted living room on boxes that served as chairs. "I wanted to say thank you," Sarah said, looking down at her hands, "for everything you did for me, for Emily." I reached out and took her hand. "We're family, Sarah." "That's what families do." She smiled, a small, tentative smile. "I brought something for Emily," she said, handing Emily a small wrapped package. Emily looked at the package. "Is that for me?" she asked. Sarah nodded. "Yeah, I thought you might like it." Emily tore open the package. Inside was a book about stars and planets. Her face lit up. "Wow, thank you, Sarah." Sarah looked relieved, happy. "You're welcome." Things were still tough, but moments like that made it all worth it. We were building something new, something strong. Emily went back to school, and she was doing well, making friends, coming back to her old self. And me? I went back to work, throwing myself into stories, into uncovering truths, just like I always did. But now I have a new perspective, a new understanding of the struggles people faced. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours. We had our little world, our safe haven, and we had each other. And that was more than enough. It was a new beginning, a chance to heal, to grow, to love. And we were ready for it, ready for whatever came our way. Together, we were unstoppable.
Hi, I'm Anna. You know how they say wedding planning brings out the worst in people? Well, let me tell you about the day I discovered just how far my own mother would go to sabotage my happiness. Not that I was completely shocked. Mom has always had a strange obsession with making my younger sister, Mia, the center of attention. But burning my wedding dress? That was a new low, even for her. Let me back up a bit. I was engaged to the most amazing guy, James, and together we were planning our dream wedding. Everything was falling into place. My best friend Ashley was my rock, total maid of honor material, and James's mom, Diana, was an absolute angel who treated me like her own daughter. My own mother, Helen, on the other hand, well, she had her own priorities, as you're about to see. "Have you seen how your sister's been moping around?" Mom asked, cornering me during a cake tasting. "She just broke up with her boyfriend, and all this wedding stuff is making her feel worse." I sighed. "Mom, I'm sorry Mia's hurting, but this is my wedding." "You've always been so selfish, Anna," she snapped. "Would it kill you to let your sister feel more involved?" More involved? Mia was already a bridesmaid, even though she'd skipped half the fittings and complained about the dress color not suiting her model complexion. Yes, she'd done some catalog work years ago, and no, she never let anyone forget it. Still, I brushed it off as typical mom drama, until Ashley noticed something odd at my final dress fitting. Hey, she said, lowering her voice. Why does your mom keep taking pictures of the alteration tags? Isn't that weird? I shrugged, chalking it up to overthinking. But then Diana pulled me aside at the rehearsal venue. Helen called the coordinator, she said carefully. She's trying to move Mia to the head table, in your spot. That should have been my wake-up call. But nothing could have prepared me for what I discovered 3 nights before the wedding. I couldn't sleep, stressed about last-minute details, so I decided to swing by my parents' house to grab my wedding dress. Mom had insisted on storing it there, claiming her climate-controlled closet was better than my apartment. As I pulled into the driveway around midnight, I noticed the flickering light in the backyard. Curious and uneasy, I crept toward the garden gate. That's when I heard her voice. It's handled, Mia, Mom said. That dress was all wrong anyway. Too classic too. Plain. Once it's gone, Anna will have no choice but to wear the one we picked. I peeked through the gate, my heart pounding. There, standing over a metal trash can, was my mother, feeding pieces of delicate white lace into the flames. My wedding dress. The one I'd spent months searching for. The one that brought me to tears of joy when I found it, was now a pile of ashes. Mama's taking care of everything, sweetheart, she continued laughing. When Anna walks in wearing that boring backup dress and you make your grand entrance in the gown we found, trust me, no one will even remember she's the bride. I froze. My mother was destroying my dress while Mia listened on speakerphone, both of them laughing as they plotted to make my wedding into Mia's show. The photographer's already been paid extra to focus on you, Mom added. And with the seating changes and the toast we wrote, this wedding is going to be your moment to shine, darling. It's what you deserve. In that instant, something inside me snapped. The dutiful daughter who always forgave, always kept the peace. She went up in flames with that dress. If they wanted a show, fine, but it wouldn't be the one they were expecting. I didn't wait for dawn. As soon as I got back to my car, I called Ashley and Diana for an emergency meeting. By 1 a.m., we were huddled in Diana's kitchen, my hands still smelling of smoke and betrayal. I have the whole thing on video. My hands trembled as I hit play on the recording. The sound of my mother's voice plotting over the flames filled Diana's kitchen. I started filming the second I saw the fire, I said, my voice shaking. Diana's expression morphed from shock to fierce determination. That's not just cruel, that's criminal. Property destruction, harassment. Her jaw tightened. Wait until you hear what Emma just sent me. Ashley held up her phone. Your wedding planner's been trying to reach you all day. I leaned closer as Ashley opened a series of screenshots. They read like a horror story. Dozens of unauthorized changes to the wedding plans, every single one traced back to Mom's email and phone number. Your mom tried to switch the venue last week. Emma's voice crackled over the speakerphone. When I refused, she threatened to report me to the Better Business Bureau. Then yesterday, Mia called pretending to be you, trying to change the bridesmaid dress order. Classic Mia, I muttered bitterly. Remember my college graduation? She accidentally spilled red wine on my white dress minutes before the ceremony. Mom made me give Mia my backup dress because, and I quote, at least someone should look nice in the photos. Ashley snorted. Or your first art show? Your mom told everyone Mia was the real artist and you were just helping with her vision. Diana scrolled through her phone, her face darkening. Look at this, she said, turning the screen to show us. Mia had been posting hints on Instagram for weeks. Pictures of her in a stunning white designer gown with captions like, preview of the wedding look that's going to steal the show. That's not even the worst of it, Emma said grimly. They've been calling all your vendors, changing delivery dates and orders. I found an email thread. They're having the flowers and decorations sent to your parents' house instead of the venue. They plan to hold everything hostage unless you agree to their terms. The more we uncovered, the worse it got. Guest list additions we'd never approved. Reception music swapped out for Mia's modeling playlist, and seating charts completely rearranged. James's family had been relegated to the back while Mia's friends were given prime spots. Then Ashley pulled up a file she recovered from an old phone Mia and I had shared years ago. Dozens of deleted texts. Look at this, she said. Years of them plotting, undermining, sabotaging. Every achievement, every milestone, they were there in the shadows, trying to dim your light. Diana's voice was steel. We're not letting them get away with this. She turned to Emma. How quickly can we set up a new venue? But an idea had already formed in my mind. I looked up, a slow smile spreading across my face. No, I said. We're keeping everything exactly as it is. They want to put on a show. Let's give them an audience they'll never forget. Ashley's eyes lit up. What are you thinking? The rehearsal dinner, I said. Mom and Mia think they've set me up for humiliation. But every change they've made plays right into our hands. The pieces were falling into place. Emma spread the contracts across Diana's dining table. They think they hold all the power because they've hijacked the vendors and arrangements, she said. And that's exactly what we'll use against them, I finished. I held up my phone, showing Mom's latest text. Don't worry, sweetie. I've handled everything with the rehearsal dinner. Just show up and trust me. Ashley smirked. Oh, she's handled it all right. Emma nodded. Every unauthorized change, every call, every email, I've documented all of it. The venue's security team is on board, and they'll be monitoring the entrances. The second Mia shows up in that white dress. Speaking of dresses, I said, grinning. Mom thinks she destroyed my only option. She has no idea, Diana, and I picked up my real dress weeks ago. Emma gestured to the seating chart. I kept their version, but with a twist. All the strategic tables are now filled with people who've seen their stunts firsthand. People ready to speak up when things go south. Ashley chimed in, and my assistant's making sure the tables are mic'd up for the rehearsal dinner. Every word will be caught on tape. The videographer's been briefed, Diana added. He'll be capturing everything from multiple angles. This is going to be better than any reality show. Emma leaned forward. What about the backup dress they picked? The one they think you'll have to wear? Oh, that's my favorite part. I pulled up a boutique's website on my phone. See this dress they chose? The plain one they think will make me look basic? It's actually a knockoff. The photos are stolen from a designer's site. The whole store is a scam, and I've got proof. Ashley laughed. So when Mia shows up in her white designer dress, I said, a sly grin forming, she'll be standing right next to proof that Mom bought me a fake. I paused for effect. And the cherry on top. I've invited a reporter from Fashion Expose, the blog Mia's been dying to get featured on. They just ran a huge expose on counterfeit wedding dresses. The room erupted into quiet laughter, Ashley leaning back in her chair with a satisfied smirk. We ran through the plan one final time. Every detail was in place. The fake seating chart that strategically positioned our witnesses, the accidentally unlocked side door we knew Mom would use to sneak in, the backup cameras hidden in flower arrangements, and the piece de resistance, evidence lined up to blow their scheme wide open. Emma held up a hand, her expression serious. Remember, she cautioned, we have to let them think they're in control until the very last moment. I glanced down at the burnt scraps of lace I'd salvaged from Mom's trash can, a pang of emotion washing over me. They destroyed my dream dress, thinking it would break me. Instead, they handed me the perfect way to expose them. They've been rehearsing this performance their whole lives, I said, standing taller. It's time to give them the audience they deserve. The rehearsal dinner was packed. Mom had gone overboard, inviting far more people than we'd planned. Perfect. Every single witness we needed was there, from Dad's business partners to Mia's modeling contacts. Everything's ready, sweetheart. Mom cooed, her smile saccharine as she guided me to a seat tucked away at the back, just as she'd arranged. Right on cue, the lights dimmed. Mom grabbed the microphone, her grin widening. Before we start, my youngest daughter has a special surprise for everyone. That was our signal. The projector flickered to life, but instead of Mia's planned slideshow, security footage filled the screen. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the first clip played. Mom, standing over the trash can, feeding my wedding dress into the flames. The audio was crystal clear. It's handled, Mia. That dress was all wrong anyway. The video transitioned seamlessly to phone recordings of their scheming, Mom threatening vendors, Mia laughing about ruining my wedding, and text messages detailing every manipulation and sabotage attempt. What is this? Mom stammered, her voice cracking as the footage continued to roll. This? I stood up, holding the charred remnants of my dress for everyone to see. This is your production. You wanted to put on a show, remember. Right on schedule, Mia burst into the room in her white designer gown, the picture of confidence, until her eyes locked on the screen. Her face paled as the crowd turned to stare at her. Helen. Dad's voice sliced through the silence, sharp and demanding. Tell me this isn't real. It was chaos. The reporter from Fashion Exposa was already furiously scribbling notes, her phone camera discreetly recording everything. Emma stepped forward, laying out the documentation. Every altered contract, every fraudulent email, every dirty trick they pulled. Diana presented her trump card, the proof that the boutique where Mom and Mia had purchased my backup dress was a known scam selling counterfeit gowns. And then James stood, his hand firmly on my shoulder. "You've done enough damage," he said, his voice steady and resolute. "This is over." In that moment, looking around the room, I realized I had everything I needed: my new family, true friends, and the unwavering love of my fiancé. Sometimes the happy ending isn't about forgiveness. Hi, I'm Sophia Mitchell, a 28-year-old pastry chef who's built her dream bakery from scratch. Life was as sweet as my cakes, until I got engaged to Michael Thompson. That's when everything turned sour, thanks to his mother, Barbara. From the very beginning, Barbara made her presence known. "Darling, you really should use less vanilla in your recipes," she said during her first visit to my bakery, as if she were some sort of expert. "Customers these days prefer a more sophisticated taste." I was elbow deep in wedding cake batter at the time, trying to hold back my frustration. Her critique of my award-winning recipe was unwelcome, but I managed a polite smile. "Your cakes are lovely, dear, but they lack that special Thompson family touch," she added with a condescending tilt of her head. "My recipes have won 3 local baking competitions," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Oh, how cute," she said. "I remember when I ran my restaurant, before I sold it, of course." What she didn't mention was that her restaurant hadn't been sold, it had been shut down. I wouldn't learn that little detail until much later. Things escalated when my best friend and business partner, Lisa, rushed into the bakery one afternoon, breathless with gossip. "Sophia, you won't believe what Barbara's sister Jennifer just told me. Barbara's been telling everyone at the country club that your bakery uses box mixes." "She what?" I sputtered. "Just ignore her. My brother Tom advised over lunch that week. But as your lawyer, and your brother, I'm telling you, there's something off about that woman." Tom wasn't wrong. Wedding planning turned into a battlefield. "The reception must be at the Windsor Hotel," Barbara declared during a planning meeting. "But Michael and I already chose the garden venue," I countered. "The Windsor has history." "Robert, tell her about the history," Barbara snapped, turning to Michael's father. Robert mumbled something incoherent into his coffee cup, looking like he wanted to disappear. "The garden venue is perfect for us, Mom," Michael said, though his voice lacked conviction. Then came the cake drama. I was in my kitchen, sketching the design for my dream wedding cake, when Barbara barged in with her sister Jennifer in tow. "Here it is, the Thompson family cake recipe," Barbara announced, thrusting a yellowed piece of paper at me. "5 generations of brides have used it." "Thank you, Barbara, but I've already designed our cake." "But it's tradition," Jennifer chimed in. "Every Thompson bride." "I'm a professional baker," I interrupted, holding my ground. "I'll be making my own wedding cake." "Michael won't be pleased," Barbara said, her smile as sharp as a knife. "He grew up expecting his bride to honor our traditions." "He'll love it," I said firmly. "He loves my baking." "We'll see about that, won't we?" she said, her smile never reaching her eyes. Little did I know, refusing that recipe was just the beginning. Barbara's interference soon took a darker turn, one I never could have imagined. It happened so fast. I felt her hands on my back, and then suddenly I was falling. My body twisted instinctively, trying to protect the wedding cake I was carrying. The stairs felt endless. Pain shot through my wrist like fire, and the world spun wildly around me. The emergency room was a blur of lights and questions. Michael arrived eventually, but instead of concern, his face showed something closer to annoyance. "Mom says you were being careless on the stairs," he said. "Careless? She pushed me," I cried. "Sophia, come on. Mom wouldn't do that." "Why would she?" "Because I wouldn't use her recipe, because I wouldn't let her control everything." "You're being dramatic. It was probably just an accident." The doctor interrupted with my diagnosis: a concussion, a sprained wrist, and bruised ribs. "The wedding will have to be postponed," I said, fighting back tears. And so my nightmare with Barbara Thompson continued. But this wasn't the end of her attempts to ruin my life. It was only the beginning. But Mom's already called all the guests. Do you know how this makes us look? How it makes you look? Michael's voice grated against my raw nerves as I lay in the hospital bed, bruised and battered. She's worried people will blame her, he added. They should blame her. She pushed me, Michael. He sighed, rubbing his temples like I was the one being unreasonable. I think the pain meds are messing with your head. Mom would never. Get out. I snapped, my voice trembling with fury. Get out of my hospital room. Now. He hesitated, looking as though he wanted to argue, but my glare must have convinced him otherwise. As the door slammed shut behind him, Lisa appeared, her face pale but determined. Sophia, she said, holding up her phone. You need to see this. Lisa had been helping set up cameras at the wedding venue. What she'd uncovered made my blood run cold. The security footage showed everything. Barbara Thompson deliberately pushing me down the stairs. Watching the video, my heart broke, not just from the betrayal, but from what it confirmed. Michael, the man I was supposed to marry the next day, would never choose me over his mother's lies. The hospital released me the next morning, but I hadn't even made it home before Michael started blowing up my phone. You need to fix this, he demanded. Mom's devastated that you're accusing her. I'm not discussing this, I replied coldly. We're done. You can't just end things over a misunderstanding. I hung up and called my brother instead. Tom, I need your legal expertise. Already on it, he said. Lisa sent me the security footage. But Sophia, there's more you need to know. At Tom's office, he handed me a thick folder. Barbara Thompson has a history, he said grimly. 3 former employees filed complaints about physical intimidation. All were mysteriously dropped, and the health department didn't shut down her restaurant for basic violations, like she claimed. Lisa chimed in. They shut it down because a waitress was pushed down the kitchen stairs. Sound familiar? Tom clicked through his computer. And get this, your bakery's recent bad reviews? All traced back to IP addresses matching Barbara's home and country club. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer, Barbara's sister. Peace meeting at your bakery. Please come. When I arrived, Jennifer paced my office, wringing her hands. You don't understand, Sophia, she began. Barbara just wants what's best for the family business. Family business? I asked, crossing my arms. Well, once you married Michael, she'd naturally take over managing your bakery. You'd be too busy with babies anyway. Jennifer froze, realizing her mistake. Oh, I wasn't supposed to say that part. My jaw dropped. She wasn't just trying to ruin me, she was planning to steal my livelihood. Not steal, Jennifer stammered. Just guide. Like she did with that lovely Vietnamese restaurant before yours. They were struggling anyway. What Vietnamese restaurant? I demanded. More digging revealed the truth. The restaurant that used to occupy my bakery's location had been systematically destroyed by Barbara. She'd ruined their reputation, then swooped in to buy the space for pennies. The next day, Lisa led me to a coffee shop where 3 women were waiting. I'm Helen, one said. Barbara was my mother-in-law too. For 6 months. Margaret, said another. She got my catering business blacklisted in 2019. Kim, the third, added. My family owned the Vietnamese restaurant. Story after story poured out. Barbara's pattern was clear. Target successful women-owned businesses, destroy them, then take over. She's been doing this for years, Helen said. But we were all too scared or ashamed to speak up. Not anymore, I said, pulling out my phone. I have security footage, Jennifer's confession, and now your stories. Let's stop her. Kim nodded. Count me in. I kept all the threatening emails. Me too, Margaret added, and photos of the accidents at my venues. Looking around the table at these strong women, I realized something. Barbara had tried to destroy me. Instead, she created an army. The phone call that changed everything came on a Tuesday. The Maxwell Jones wedding. The coordinator began, her voice brimming with excitement. The biggest social event of the season. We want you to cater it. Are you sure? I asked. I heard Barbara Thompson was handling the catering. After what happened at the country club, not a chance. Word had spread fast. The security footage of my fall leaked online, and soon former employees and business owners came forward with their own stories. Lisa burst into the kitchen one day, waving her phone. Did you see the food critics' review? She asked, grinning. The headline read, Rising Phoenix Bakery, Tradition Meets Innovation. Below it was a scathing expose of Barbara's so-called traditional recipes, all stolen from the cooks she bullied. Karma came for Barbara in waves. Jennifer's social circle turned on her, disgusted by her complicity. Barbara's schemes unraveled, and her once untouchable reputation was left in ruins. And me? I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. Barbara thought she could destroy me. Instead, she made me unstoppable. Michael's restaurant closed before it even opened. No suppliers were willing to work with the Thompson name. Meanwhile, the sweetest moment of poetic justice came when I catered Jennifer's daughter's high-profile wedding. The cake is exquisite. The bride gushed. I can't believe Aunt Barbara tried to stop me from hiring you. Your aunt isn't causing trouble about being uninvited, is she? I asked. Please, he said, rolling her eyes. After what she did to you and those other women, she's lucky we still acknowledge her at Christmas. Word on the grapevine was that Michael was now working late shifts at a diner. The Thompson family money dried up after Barbara's victims filed lawsuits against her. Last week, I opened my second bakery location, complete with a ribbon-cutting ceremony that made the local news. When a reporter asked me about Barbara, I simply smiled. I'm focused on the future, I said. Some people build themselves up by tearing others down. I build myself up by building amazing cakes. As I was cleaning up after the event, my phone buzzed. A text from Lisa. Barbara just got denied membership at her 4th country club this month. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Success is the best revenge, and my success was written in buttercream, validated by awards, and measured in the lines of customers waiting for my innovative takes on traditional recipes. They say living well is the best revenge, but living well while your enemies watch their empire crumble. That's even better. What would you do if your mother-in-law pushed you down the stairs and your fiancé chose to defend her? Would you expose toxic family members, even if it meant destroying their reputation? Or would you quietly walk away? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you'd handle a situation like this. If you enjoyed this story of standing up to toxic family dynamics and serving a dish of well-deserved justice, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. Your support helps me share more real-life tales of resilience and empowerment. My name is Alexandra Chen, and at 32, I shattered expectations to become the youngest vice president of operations at Johnson Corp. Every time I swiped my keycard for access to the executive floor, I felt a surge of pride. That pride kept me grounded, until my carefully constructed world started unraveling. All thanks to my mother-in-law Helen and her whirlwind romance with our 60-year-old CEO. Another stellar quarter, Alex, Tom Johnson had said 3 months ago during my last performance review. His tone had been warm, his admiration genuine. Your supply chain overhaul saved us millions. You've set a new standard. I'd walked out of that meeting with my head held high, finally silencing the whispers about being too young, too ambitious, too much. Fast forward to now, I'm standing in the same office, but this time, Tom isn't alone. Helen sits beside him, her diamond wedding ring glittering in the morning light. It's the same ring she flashed around at their Vegas wedding last weekend, where my husband Mark and I were barely considered afterthoughts, shoved into the second row. Alexandra, darling, Helen begins, her syrupy tone barely masking the steel beneath it. It's the same tone she uses at family dinners to disguise her insults as advice. Tom and I have been discussing some organizational updates. My stomach knots, but I maintain a steady expression. Helen's been dropping hints for months, ever since she started dating Tom, about modernizing the company. I just didn't realize her vision of modernization would bulldoze my career. We're bringing in fresh perspectives, Tom says, though his eyes don't quite meet mine. He looks diminished, like a man who's seated the driver's seat. Helen has some incredible ideas for the company's future. Before I can respond, the door opens. My sister-in-law Melissa strides in, her designer suit still sporting the tags at her wrist. She's been chronically unemployed since dropping out of her MBA program 2 years ago, spending her time building a lackluster lifestyle blog. Melissa will be joining as co-vice president of operations, Helen declares, smiling at her daughter as though she's just crowned her royalty. We thought it best for her to work closely with you before transitioning to full leadership. Co-vice president. The words are out before I can stop them. Somehow, my voice stays even. masking the turmoil beneath. It's more of a mentorship, Melissa chimes in, plopping into the chair beside me as if it's always been hers. Mom, sorry, Helen. Thinks I should shadow you for a while before fully taking over. You've done such a great job laying the groundwork. Taking over completely. The phrase lands like a punch. 5 years of 60-hour weeks, missed holidays, and endless proving of myself. Being handed over to someone whose resume is as empty as her blog's comment section. After all, we're family, Helen cuts in with a pointed smile. And family helps family, don't they? I've heard that phrase too many times before. Like when Helen borrowed my house for Melissa's failed jewelry business launch and left me with wine-stained carpets. Or when she suggested I hand over my handbag because Melissa needed it for interviews she never went to. I take a deep breath, forcing my hands to unclench. When does this transition begin? Today. Melissa chirps, pulling out a rose gold laptop like she's about to revolutionize corporate strategy. I already have ideas. The supply chain stuff is so boring. We should focus on social media. Maybe start a company TikTok. Tom flinches slightly, but Helen's hand on his arm silences him. We're counting on you to help Melissa acclimate, she says, her tone making it clear this isn't a request. I rise, smoothing my skirt. If you'll excuse me, I have a supplier meeting in 5 minutes. Perfect. Melissa springs up, trailing me out of the office. I'll come with you. Shadowing starts now. As we walk down the hall, her voice droning on about hashtags and influencers, I catch my reflection in the glass walls. Polished, professional, resilient, the woman I worked so hard to become. But behind me, Helen's smug satisfaction gleams like a victory flag. They think I'll just roll over. They think I'll let them take everything I've built. They have no idea who they're dealing with. The supplier meeting was a disaster. I sat silently, my jaw clenched as Melissa derailed our largest vendor's presentation with questions about their social media aesthetic and whether they considered doing unboxing videos. Mr. Chen, our most reliable supplier and a partner I'd worked with for 3 years to streamline our Asian manufacturing operations, kept throwing me uneasy glances. Perhaps we should return to the key 3 projections, I interjected, trying to salvage the meeting. But Melissa cut me off. Actually, I have a great idea, she chirped, twirling a strand of hair. Why don't we ditch all these big suppliers and move production to those cute little artisans I follow on Instagram? Think of the content. After the meeting, Mr. Chen pulled me aside. Ms. Chen, he said quietly, his face clouded with concern. Is everything all right? These changes seem unusual. I forced a smile, swallowing my frustration. Just a temporary adjustment. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. Back in my office, now a shared space thanks to Melissa, I found her perched at the conference table, which was now decorated with a massive rose gold Boss Babe sign. I resisted the urge to throw it out the window and instead started documenting everything. Every unprofessional comment, every botched decision, every potential policy violation. Alexandra, Melissa burst in, waving her phone excitedly. Mom just texted, "We're having a special executive dinner tonight at La Maison. Tom's announcing my promotion to the board." My stomach dropped. Promotion? You've been here for 1 day. Well, yeah, she said, as though it were obvious. But Mom says I'm ready for more responsibility. This operations stuff is super basic anyway. Anyone could do it. I thought of the years I'd spent getting my MBA while working full-time, the sleepless nights spent fine-tuning supply chain models, and the painstaking relationships I'd built with our suppliers. That evening, I walked into La Maison to find the executive team gathered around Helen, who sat at the head of the table like a queen holding court. Tom was beside her, his discomfort visible in the tight set of his jaw. "Alexandra, darling," Helen called out, her voice dripping with condescension. "We were just talking about Melissa's brilliant idea to restructure our supply chain. Isn't she remarkable?" I kept my tone even. Restructure? I wasn't aware of any plans to restructure. "Oh, don't worry about it," Melissa said breezily, waving a hand. "I've got it all figured out. We'll cancel those boring overseas contracts and work with local influencers instead. Imagine an Instagram engagement. Those contracts account for millions in inventory and binding legal obligations," pointed out. "Breaking them could bankrupt the company." Helen's smile tightened. "Now, Alexandra, don't be difficult. Melissa's ideas are fresh and forward-thinking. Sometimes the old ways need to change. I noticed a few board members exchanging worried glances. At least not everyone had been fully won over by Helen's charm offensive. Later that night, I found an email from David, our CFO. Can we meet privately? Concerns about recent developments. The next morning, I met David in the corporate gym, one of the few places I knew Helen and Melissa would never set foot. This is bad, Alex, he said, wiping sweat from his brow between sets. Helen's already pushed through changes without board approval. Melissa's overseeing 3 major accounts, and today's trading numbers look troubling. I showed him my growing stack of documentation. This isn't just about me anymore. They're jeopardizing the company's future. Keep gathering evidence, David advised. But watch your back. Sarah from legal tried to push back on the contract violations. She was fired this morning. Back in my office, I heard Melissa on a conference call with our biggest client. Oh no, we're completely changing direction, she said, her voice oozing confidence. Alexandra's outdated strategies are out. We're going for a younger, millennial-friendly vibe now. I froze as I watched our stock price drop 3% in real time. When I tried to intervene, Helen appeared, as though summoned by my frustration. Alexandra, dear, she said, her voice steely beneath her smile. Melissa needs room to grow. Why don't you take a few days off? Paid vacation, of course. Moments later, security was escorting me out. Apparently, Helen's idea of a vacation also involved revoking my building access. As I sat in my car, staring at my cracked phone screen, a message from Mark popped up. Mom says you're causing problems at work. Why can't you just support Melissa? I gripped the phone so tightly it cracked further. Fine. They wanted me out of the way. They thought I'd just roll over and let them destroy everything I built. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I had 3 days to save my company, and I knew exactly where to start. From my home office, I launched my counterattack. First, I emailed the board members every piece of documentation I collected, screenshots of Melissa's disastrous client calls, charts showing the stock price plummeting, and projections of the catastrophic losses her decisions would cause. Then I called Mr. Chen. The rumors are true, I confirmed. They're planning to break our contracts. But I have a proposition for you. The next day, while I was supposedly on vacation, Mr. Chen exercised his right as our largest supplier to request an emergency board meeting. Helen couldn't block it. I wasn't in the room, but David kept me updated via text. Chen is showing them everything. Projected losses from broken contracts, $50 million. Stock price down 7% since Melissa started. 3 major clients threatening to leave. A few minutes later, Helen trying to dismiss concerns. Board not buying it. Tom finally speaking up. Then, emergency executive session called. Get ready. My phone rang. It was Tom. Alexandra. He sounded older, more tired than I ever heard him. Can you come in? Now? I smiled despite myself. I thought I was on vacation. Security will let you up, he said quietly. Please hurry. Walking into the boardroom felt like stepping into a battlefield after the dust had settled. Helen's face was flushed with rage, Melissa was sobbing, and the board members sat stone-faced around the table. How dare you go behind our backs? Helen spat as soon as she saw me. But Tom raised his hand, cutting her off. Enough, Helen. His voice carried a weight I hadn't heard in years. The board has voted. Your position as president is terminated, effective immediately. You can't do this, Helen shrieked. I'm your wife. And I was a fool to let that cloud my judgment, Tom said evenly. Then he turned to me. Alexandra, the board would like to reinstate you as vice president of operations, with additional oversight of strategic planning. That is, if you're willing. Before I could respond, Melissa leaped to her feet. This isn't fair. I had plans. I was going to make us viral on TikTok. Your plans nearly destroyed this company, one board member snapped. We've lost millions in market value in just 3 days. But I'm family, Melissa wailed. No, I said firmly, my voice cutting through the tension. You're not. Family doesn't try to destroy what others have built. Family doesn't use relationships as weapons. And family certainly doesn't value social media clout over people's livelihoods. I turned back to Tom. I'll accept the position on 2 conditions. First, a full audit of all decisions made during Helen's tenure as president. Second, a new nepotism policy to ensure this never happens again. Agreed, Tom said without hesitation. Then he looked at Helen. And Helen, we need to discuss our personal situation as well. As security escorted Helen and Melissa out, my phone buzzed. It was Mark. Alex, I'm so sorry. I had no idea what Mom was doing. Can we talk? I didn't reply, not yet. Later that evening, I sat in my restored office, reading the company-wide email announcing the leadership changes. My name was listed, along with my new title. But this wasn't about titles anymore. It was about standing up to those who thought they could bulldoze their way through my hard work, who mistook nepotism for loyalty. A message popped up from Mr. Chen. Glad to have you back, Ms. Chen. Let's discuss that expansion plan you proposed last month. I looked out the window at the city skyline, reflecting on everything that had happened. About power, family, and the true meaning of loyalty. Helen and Melissa had tried to weaponize family ties against me, but they'd forgotten something crucial. Real success isn't inherited, manipulated, or stolen. It's earned. The stock rebounded the next day, jumping 10% on news of the leadership changes. I had my team back, my position back, and most importantly, my dignity. As for Helen and Melissa, last I heard, they were planning to start a mother-daughter influencer account. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just succeeding. It's succeeding so spectacularly that those who tried to tear you down are forced to watch from the sidelines powerless. The next time someone tells me, family helps family, I'll remember this: real family lifts each other up. They don't tear each other down. And sometimes the most professional response to unprofessional behavior is simply being better than they ever thought you could be. Hi, I'm Emily Parker, and last Tuesday, I found my entire life packed into boxes sitting on my front porch. It's only temporary, my mother-in-law, Margaret, had said, her tone dripping with condescension. Sarah needs a proper home for the baby. But I knew better. This was no temporary arrangement. The boxes were stacked neatly, each one labeled with Margaret's meticulous handwriting. Kitchen, clothes, personal items. 5 years of memories reduced to categories and set outside like yesterday's trash. My hand trembled as I reached for my favorite coffee mug, poorly wrapped in crumpled newspaper. Emily, don't make this harder than it has to be, Margaret said, leaning casually against the doorframe. Her arms were crossed, her expression firm. Behind her stood Sarah, my sister-in-law, with one hand resting on her barely there baby bump and the other tucked protectively over her chest. Her wide, innocent eyes held the practiced look of someone who always got her way. This is my house, I said, my voice shaking but steady enough. Daniel and I bought it together. We built this life together. Memories of painting walls, assembling furniture, and dreaming about our future flooded my mind. Margaret's lips pressed into a thin, tight smile. Sarah's pregnancy is high risk, she explained as if I hadn't already heard it 100 times. She needs to be near family, and this house is ideal for her. Single story, spacious, close to the hospital. You and Daniel can manage in the rental property for a little while. The rental property? I asked, my voice rising. You mean that dilapidated duplex across town? Margaret had spent years lamenting how much of a money pit it was. It's been fixed up, Sarah chimed in, her voice sticky sweet. Mom's had contractors there all week. It's cozy. Cozy. The word hit like a slap. I could barely contain my disbelief. 3 months ago, when Sarah had announced her pregnancy at a family dinner, Margaret's eyes lit up like it was the second coming. Since then, she'd used every excuse to center the world around Sarah and her unborn child. Where's Daniel? I demanded, peering past them into the house. My house, where movers bustled about, carrying in Sarah's furniture. Through the open door, I saw the coral nursery set she'd been gushing over just last week being hauled upstairs. He's at work, Margaret replied smoothly, not meeting my eyes. He agrees this is for the best. Sarah's condition. Stop, I cut in, my patience wearing thin. Sarah's condition is a normal pregnancy. I'm a labor and delivery nurse, Margaret. I know what high risk looks like. Sarah's face clouded briefly before she burst into tears, right on cue. Margaret immediately wrapped her arms around her. Emily, she hissed. Do you see what you've done? The doctor said she can't handle stress like this. I pulled out my phone, dialing Daniel's number. Straight to voicemail. Twice. 3 times. Margaret crossed her arms again, her smile growing smug. He's in meetings all day, she said. Emily, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. It's only for a few months. But I wasn't naive. This wasn't temporary. The way Sarah was directing the movers, the pristine designer nursery being assembled upstairs, it was all too deliberate. This had been planned, likely for weeks, while I worked back-to-back hospital shifts. I'll call a lawyer, I said, the words spilling out before I could think twice. Margaret's laugh was sharp and cold. And who will you hire? Stanley Adams? The Parker family lawyer for 30 years? Or someone else in town who knows better than to cross us? She stepped closer, her voice lowering to a hiss. You're out of your league, Emily. Accept this gracefully or make it worse for yourself. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. Mom explained everything. It's best for the baby. The duplex is fine for now. Please don't make this difficult. For now. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. 5 years of love, sacrifice, and loyalty reduced to a text message and a pile of boxes. The movers will take your things to the duplex, Margaret said, already turning back toward the house. The keys and address are on that box. We need you out by tonight. Sarah needs her rest. I stood frozen as they disappeared inside, Margaret's voice blending with Sarah's as they discussed furniture arrangements. Through the window, I saw Sarah running her fingers along the kitchen counters Daniel and I had scrimped and saved to install. For a moment, the weight of it all threatened to crush me. But as I loaded the first box into my car, my wedding ring caught the light and something inside me shifted. Margaret thought she'd won, but she underestimated me. I wasn't the same timid girl who married into the Parker family 5 years ago. I had my own resources, my own plans, and nothing left to lose. I glanced back at the house, now alive with workers transforming it into Sarah's new sanctuary. Game on, I whispered under my breath, gripping the steering wheel. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The duplex was just as I expected, cramped, dingy, and reeking of mildew. Margaret's so-called fixes consisted of a slapdash paint job and mismatched furniture that looked like it had been scavenged from a garage sale. The wallpaper in the bedroom was peeling, revealing water stains underneath. I sank onto the lumpy couch, scrolling through my phone's photo gallery. Each picture felt like a gut punch. 5 years of memories in that house, now overshadowed by the image of Sarah, undoubtedly repainting my kitchen in the sage green she wouldn't stop talking about. A sharp knock interrupted my thoughts. Emily? It's Helen from next door. I opened the door to see my colleague from a hospital. Her brow furrowed, concern etched across her face. I saw you moving in, she said. Isn't this the Parkers' infamous rental property? I nodded, inviting her in. Before I could stop myself, the whole story spilled out. Between sobs, I recounted everything. The packed boxes, the eviction, the smug smiles. Helen's expression darkened as she listened. Emily, she said carefully, there's something you should know. Sarah was at the hospital yesterday for her checkup. I wasn't supposed to be near the records desk, but I overheard her talking to Dr. Martinez. She's not high risk at all. In fact, the doctor said she's having one of the easiest pregnancies she's seen in years. I froze, my hands clenching into fists. I knew it, but Daniel won't listen. He's completely under their control. Helen hesitated. There's more. Last week, I overheard Sarah asking about property laws. Specifically, about how long someone needs to live in a house to establish it as their primary residence. The pieces snapped together like a cruel puzzle. This wasn't temporary. Margaret and Sarah weren't just trying to push me out. They were plotting to take my home. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a group text from Margaret. Dinner at our house tonight. Mandatory family meeting to discuss the new living arrangements. Emily, please dress appropriately this time. I considered skipping it, but then I remembered the folder hidden in my office desk. The one Margaret and Sarah didn't find when they'd packed up my life. I'll be there, I texted back. That evening, I arrived at the Parker mansion wearing my sharpest black dress and a cold, unyielding smile. Through the window, I saw Sarah curled up in my favorite armchair, the one I brought from my parents' house. Now it sat smugly in Margaret's pristine living room. Emily, so good of you to join us, Margaret said as she opened the door, her eyes narrowing at my outfit. Inside, Daniel sat stiffly beside Sarah, who was dramatically cradling her barely visible bump. The duplex is cozy, I said lightly, echoing Sarah's earlier jab. Though I did have an interesting chat with a housing inspector today. Margaret stiffened. Housing inspector? Yes, I replied, letting the moment stretch. They're very concerned about the black mold behind the bathroom walls. And the electrical issues. Did you know it's illegal to rent out a property in that condition? Margaret's composure faltered, her smile freezing in place. You called the housing authorities? Daniel asked, his voice tight. Actually, they called me. Turns out someone filed a complaint months ago, but it was misplaced. Until today, I pulled out my phone, displaying the email. They'll be conducting a full inspection next week. Sarah shot to her feet, her polished mask slipping. Mom, you promised that place was fixed. I can't have my sister-in-law living in a moldy duplex. Think of how it would look to my blog followers. Ah, her blog. Sarah's carefully curated online image, the one thing she truly cared about. Oh, don't worry, I said sweetly. I've already shared my situation on several local community forums. The response has been overwhelming. People are so concerned about a pregnant woman forcing her brother's wife into hazardous housing. Sarah's jaw dropped and she grabbed her phone, frantically checking her follower count. Take it down, Margaret barked. This is a private family matter. Like how you privately packed up my house? I shot back. Or how you privately told the neighbors I abandoned my home out of jealousy. I stood, my voice cold and steady. By the way, I found my folder. The one from my office desk. Daniel's head snapped up. What folder? The one with the property deed, I said, locking eyes with him. The one that shows I'm the primary owner of the house. My inheritance paid for 70% of the down payment. Legally, the house is mine. The room fell silent. Margaret's face turned a mottled shade of purple, and Sarah's phone slipped from her hand. That's not possible, Margaret stammered. Daniel told us he paid for everything. Did he? I turned to my husband, my voice sharp as a knife. Tell them, Daniel. Tell them how my grandmother's money made this possible. Tell them how you promised it would always be our home. Daniel's face crumbled, his guilt written plainly across it. I didn't think. No, you didn't think. None of you did. I placed a stack of papers on the table. My lawyer, not Stanley Adams, but someone from the city, will be serving you with official papers tomorrow. I want my house back within 48 hours, or we can let a judge decide. I turned to Sarah, whose carefully constructed facade had shattered completely. And Sarah? My lawyer is very interested in your searches about residency laws. Attempted property fraud carries significant consequences. I smoothed my dress, the picture of calm. I'll see myself out. Oh, and Margaret. The housing inspector wants to speak to you about the rent you've been collecting on that duplex. Apparently, you haven't reported that income for years. As I walked to my car, the voices behind me erupted into chaos. Sarah's shrieks, Margaret's frantic demands, and Daniel's desperate attempts to explain. But I didn't look back. They thought they could erase me, replace me, cast me aside. They were wrong. The next 48 hours were a war of attrition. My phone buzzed incessantly with messages. Margaret sent threats wrapped in fox politeness. Sarah tried her hand at tearful guilt trips, and Daniel alternated between desperate apologies and weak defenses. I ignored them all, forwarding every message to my lawyer. But on Wednesday morning, there was a knock at my door. Emily, can we talk? It was Robert, my father-in-law, looking older and more exhausted than I had ever seen. I hesitated before letting him in. Unlike Margaret, Robert had always treated me kindly, though his silence in the face of her schemes had been just as hurtful. I found these, he said, placing a folder on my coffee table. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it. Inside were emails between Margaret and Sarah, dating back months. They outlined everything: the manipulation of Daniel through Sarah's pregnancy, their research into property laws, and their plan to renovate my house while I was too busy working hospital shifts to notice. I stared at the damning evidence, my voice quiet. Why are you showing me this now? Robert sighed, the weight of years of inaction pressing down on him. Because I've seen this before. Margaret did something similar to Daniel's first girlfriend in college. She decided the girl wasn't good enough and pushed her out. The poor thing transferred schools, and Daniel, he didn't stand up for her. I kept quiet then, told myself it wasn't my place. But watching them do this to you, knowing how much you've given to this family, I can't stay silent anymore. I studied the emails, my lawyer's words ringing in my ears. The more evidence we have, the stronger our case. There's more, Robert said hesitantly. The housing inspector called Margaret this morning. The duplex is in worse shape than anyone realized. Structural issues, severe code violations. She's been collecting rent illegally for years. Before I could respond, another knock came at the door. This time it was Helen, looking worried. Emily, you need to see this, she said, holding up her phone. On the screen was Sarah's latest Instagram post. A tearful video ranting about toxic family members and the stress they were putting on her and her unborn child. The comments were brutal. Locals who knew the truth were calling her out, and it was clear her carefully curated image was cracking under the pressure. My phone buzzed again. It was my lawyer. Emily, they're ready to negotiate. All of them. An hour later, I sat in my lawyer's office, facing the people who had tried to erase me from my own life. Margaret's flawless composure was gone. Her shoulders slumped. Sarah's mascara was streaked down her face, and Daniel looked utterly defeated. Here are our terms, my lawyer began, his tone firm and unyielding. Emily gets the house back immediately, and all renovation costs will be reimbursed. Mrs. Parker will face the legal consequences of operating an illegal rental property. And we have ample evidence of attempted property fraud should you wish to contest any of this. You can't prove anything, Margaret snapped, but Robert's quiet voice cut through her bluster. Enough, Margaret. He placed the folder of emails on the table with finality. It's over. Sarah dissolved into sobs, real ones this time. My followers are calling me a fraud. My sponsorships are pulling out. Mom, fix this. But Margaret was staring at the emails, her face pale and drawn. Robert, how could you? How could I? He replied, his voice trembling with years of suppressed frustration. How could you? You jeopardized our son's marriage, our grandchild's future, because you couldn't bear to give up control. Daniel finally spoke, his voice hoarse and broken. Emily, I am so sorry. I should have stood up to them. I should have protected you, our home, our marriage. I looked at him, really looked at him. Yes, you should have. We can fix this, he pleaded. Move back home, start over. But my lawyer cut in smoothly. The house will be returned to Emily's sole ownership, and given the circumstances, she's filing for divorce. The room erupted in protests, but I felt a strange sense of peace wash over me. Daniel, I said calmly, you didn't just fail to protect me. You helped them hurt me. That's not something we can come back from. 6 months later, I stood in my fully restored home, finally feeling like it was truly mine again. The walls were painted in colors I loved, my grandmother's furniture was back in place, and the house felt warm and inviting, no longer tainted by their schemes. Sarah had moved out of state, her social media empire in ruins. Margaret and Robert were in marriage counseling after Robert finally found the courage to stand up to her. The illegal duplex had been renovated and turned into affordable housing through a local charity. As for Daniel, he'd sent me a letter last week. He was in therapy, finally confronting the toxic dynamics of his family. A small part of me hoped he'd find happiness, but not with me. I learned my worth, and it was far too high to ever settle for less again. The doorbell rang. Helen stood there, holding a casserole dish and grinning. Ready for your housewarming party? She asked, pulling me into a hug. I glanced around at the home I had fought so hard to reclaim. You know what? I said, smiling. I am. Sometimes losing everything teaches you exactly what you're capable of. Margaret thought she could erase me, Sarah thought she could replace me, and Daniel thought he could choose them over me. They all learned the hard way what happens when you underestimate someone's strength. Now let me ask you, have you ever had to stand up to family members who try to control your life? How did you find the strength to fight back? Share your story in the comments below. My name is Hannah Wilson, and right now, I'm staring at my business account. The balance, 0. Every dollar I've worked so hard to earn is gone. Jessica, my sister-in-law and trusted accountant, claims she borrowed the money. Her words, family helps family, echo in my mind as I refresh the banking app again, praying this is some kind of glitch. Let me rewind. 3 years ago, I launched Wilson Creative, a boutique marketing agency born from years of 80-hour work weeks and relentless ambition. It wasn't easy, but with sleepless nights and unwavering determination, I grew the agency into a thriving business with a team of 15. Then, 8 months ago, Jessica showed up at my door, her face streaked with mascara and desperation. She'd lost her accounting job and was drowning in bills. "I just need a fresh start," she pleaded over dinner, her voice breaking. "Hannah, you know how hard I worked to get my CPA license. Please just give me a chance." Mark, my husband, squeezed my hand. His eyes said it all. "She's family. Help her." I hesitated. My gut screamed caution, but as I watched her sob into her pasta, listing her mounting debts and rent troubles, my heart overruled my instincts. "Okay," I relented. "You can start Monday as our accountant, but Jessica, this is more than a job to me. It's my dream. Please don't let me down." She hugged me tightly, almost too tightly. "You won't regret this, I promise. Family takes care of family, right?" At first, she was perfect. Jessica streamlined our accounts, organized payroll, and uncovered tax deductions I hadn't known existed. Clients praised our professionalism. Employees were relieved to have the finances running smoothly. For the first time, I felt I could focus on growing the agency instead of drowning in admin. But cracks started to show. Jessica began arriving late, citing traffic or vague appointments. She flaunted a new designer bag one week and a luxury car the next, dismissing it all as great deals. The books balanced, so I looked the other way. Until this morning. The call came from Dave, one of our largest clients. "Hannah, there's a problem with our payment. Your invoice says we're overdue, but we sent it weeks ago." Confused, I promised to investigate. That's when I logged into our business account and my world collapsed. Zero balance. 3 years of hard work, every client payment, every employee paycheck, gone. Panicked, I called Jessica. She picked up immediately, her tone almost cheerful. "Oh, that? Don't worry. I just moved some funds around. Family helps family, remember? I needed to borrow it for a bit." My breath caught. "Borrow?" "Jessica, that's $350,000. That's not your money." "Relax, Hannah," she said with an exasperated sigh. "I'll pay it back eventually. Mark always said what's his is mine too. And since he's your husband." I hung up, my hands shaking with rage. When I tried calling back, my number was blocked. At the office, her desk was cleared out. On social media, she was posting from an airport lounge. Off on a new adventure. Sometimes you just have to leap. #less #new beginnings. Now I sit here in an office I built from nothing, trying to process the devastation. How do I tell my employees their paychecks might not come? How do I tell Mark's sister just sabotage everything we've worked for? My phone buzzes with a text from my mother-in-law. Jessica told me everything. "How could you drive her to this? Family should support each other, not hoard money like you do." I closed my eyes, anger and heartbreak threatening to overwhelm me. This isn't just about money. It's about betrayal, trust, and fighting for what's right. I've built this business from the ground up, and I'm not about to let Jessica's selfishness destroy it. She may have emptied my accounts, but I'm not going down without a fight. My hands shook as I stepped into the police station that afternoon, every step feeling like an act of betrayal against Mark. But what choice did I have? As I sat across from Detective Roberts, laying out bank statements and transaction records, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. More angry messages from my in-laws. "Mrs. Wilson," Detective Roberts said, scanning the documents, "these transfers weren't random. Multiple small amounts moved through various accounts over months before the final withdrawal. This wasn't impulsive. It was methodical." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Just then, my phone lit up. Mark was calling. I'd avoided him all day, but I couldn't keep dodging forever. "I need to take this," I said quietly, stepping into the hallway. "Hannah, what the hell is going on?" Mark's voice cracked with tension. "Mom's calling me nonstop, saying you're out to ruin Jessica. And Jess sent me this text about borrowing money." "She didn't borrow it, Mark," I interrupted, my voice cold but steady. "She drained our business accounts. All of them. She stole $350,000 and disappeared." There was silence on the other end. When Mark finally spoke, his voice sounded strange, almost detached. "There's got to be some mistake. Jess couldn't. Check her Instagram, Mark," I said, exhaustion lacing my tone. "She's in Dubai." Another long pause, then maybe she's just regrouping. You know, she's been struggling since her divorce. We should talk to her, work this out as a family. Work it out? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mark, I have 15 employees waiting for paychecks. Clients who've already paid for campaigns we can't deliver. This isn't a misunderstanding or some family issue. It's theft. You're at the police station, aren't you? His voice turned cold, almost accusing. She's my sister, Hannah. My family. And I'm your wife, I snapped, tears stinging my eyes. This is our life she's destroying. That evening, I sat alone in my office, surrounded by the remnants of everything I'd worked for. My employees had gone home, blissfully unaware that tomorrow might be our last day. My phone sat on my desk, the screen lighting up with missed calls and voicemails, each more accusatory than the last. Then my computer pinged, a new email. My stomach twisted as I opened it. Subject: a friendly reminder. Dear Hannah, by now, you've probably noticed the changes to the accounts. Don't panic. I've been planning this for months. Mark and I grew up sharing everything, but then you showed up with your rules and professional boundaries. So I made it my business to learn all about your company, your clients, your vulnerabilities. The money is just the beginning. Check your client contracts, specifically the ones I revised last month. You'll find some interesting changes to the payment terms. Oh, and those tax deductions I found. Let's just say the IRS might have some questions. Go to the police if you want, but remember, I have all your company's financial records. One wrong move, and I'll make sure the world knows about those creative accounting practices you use when starting out. Family helps family, right? XOXO, Jessica. I stared at the screen, my hands ice cold. Jessica hadn't just stolen money, she had laid traps everywhere, creating a web of sabotage that could ruin me even if I recovered the funds. My phone buzzed again. A text from Mark. Coming home late. Need time to think. Mom and Dad want a family meeting tomorrow to discuss this mess Yovuhi created. A mess I've created. My jaw tightened. I opened my laptop, determined to document everything. Every transaction, every contract change, every manipulative message. If my family wouldn't stand by me, I'd have to protect myself. Just then, the office door creaked open. I glanced up to see Sarah, my assistant, standing in the doorway. Hannah, I stayed late to finish some filing, and I found something weird in last week's backups. You need to see this. Look at this, Sarah said, pointing to her screen. A hidden folder of backed up emails filled the monitor. Jessica created shadow accounts for every client, siphoning payments for months. But she made one critical mistake. She used the company's server for everything, thinking she'd erased it all. My heart pounded as we dug deeper. The emails revealed transactions to offshore accounts, exchanges with dubious consultants, and even a step-by-step plan to sabotage my company's reputation after her departure. But the most shocking discovery was a string of messages between Jessica and my mother-in-law, Helen, dated months earlier. Mom, it's all set up. Once I drain the accounts, we'll use Hannah's client list to launch our own agency. When the business fails, Mark will have no choice but to leave her. You were right, she's never been good enough for him. I felt a wave of nausea. This wasn't just Jessica acting alone. Helen had been in on it from the start. The next morning, I walked into the family meeting at my in-laws' house with a folder of evidence in hand and my lawyer on speed dial. Mark sat at the table, his face lined with exhaustion. Helen, ever the matriarch, sat at the head of the table, exuding false concern, while my father-in-law, Thomas, scrolled on his phone. Well, Hannah, Helen began, her voice oozing fake sympathy. I hope you're here to apologize to Jessica. This vendetta of yours. I slammed the folder onto the table, cutting her off. Before you lecture me, you might want to read your own emails, Helen, the ones where you helped Jessica plan to ruin my business. The room fell silent. Helen's face went pale as Mark grabbed the folder, his hands trembling as he flipped through the pages. Mom, what is this? He asked, his voice unsteady. Helen stammered, It's nothing, Mark. Just misunderstood conversations. Misunderstood. I pulled out my phone and pressed play on a voicemail from Jessica. Listen to this. Jessica's voice filled the room, cold and calculated, as she detailed their plan to take over my client list and destroy my reputation. With every word, Mark's expression grew darker. I've already filed charges against Jessica, I said calmly. The police are especially interested in these emails, Helen. They show conspiracy and premeditation. You wouldn't dare, Helen hissed, her mask slipping. We're family. I stood, my voice steady. Family? Family doesn't steal someone's life's work. Family doesn't manipulate their own son to destroy his wife. Family stands together, not tears each other down. Thomas finally looked up from his phone, his face grim. Helen, what have you done? Everything unraveled after that. Thomas, a respected judge, was appalled by his wife and daughter's actions. He immediately froze the accounts Helen shared with Jessica, ensuring they couldn't access more funds. 2 weeks later, Jessica was arrested trying to enter Canada with luxury items, a forged passport, and a new identity. Thankfully, a significant portion of my company's money was still recoverable from accounts she hadn't fully drained. Helen faced her own reckoning. The scandal forced her to resign from her cherished charity boards, and Thomas filed for divorce, unable to forgive her betrayal. As for my business, we not only survived but thrived. Clients rallied around us when they learned the truth, and Sarah's discovery of the backups prevented Jessica's tampering from causing lasting damage. Mark and I had a long road ahead. The betrayal shook him deeply, and he moved out temporarily to process the fallout. But unlike his mother, he chose to stand with me, facing the truth over blind loyalty. Counseling helped us begin to rebuild the trust that Helen and Jessica had tried to shatter. 6 months later, I sat in my newly expanded office, watching my growing team work with purpose. The betrayal had taught me harsh lessons about trust, but it also revealed who truly had my back. My phone buzzed. A text from Mark. Just finished moving back in. Dinner tonight to celebrate your best quarter yet. I smiled, typing back, yes, and Mark, thank you for choosing us. Sometimes family isn't defined by blood or marriage. It's about the people who stand beside you when others try to tear you down. Jessica and Helen thought they could destroy me with their betrayal, but all they did was show me the true meaning of family.